It's funny how Civ 7 has turned players into, I don't know, matchmakers. The question is, how good are we at it so far? It used to be that you could begin a game of Civilization by picking a leader, reflecting the type of game you wanted to play, and then charging ahead. Things are different now. Leaders and civs are not joined at the hip, and you have to make a few more decisions before starting a game. It's worth thinking out loud right now about what's different and what matters most in our decision making process. If you've been following Civ 7 closely over the last several months, you'll have noticed that people have come up with some new angles and unexpected combos. The creativity here can be fun for sure, but it's worth asking if it's the leaders or the civs that make the biggest differences for us. For one thing, my own process usually revolves around thinking of a leader I want to try or a type of game I want to run. Then I figure out the best civ to start with. I assume other people think through all of this differently, but for me, I have to have a leader I'm interested in. There are exceptions, though. One of them is when a new civ comes out and I want to find the best leader to go with it. That is the situation with Silla. Once you look at the abilities, special units, and buildings, civics, and traditions of Silla, how much impact can a leader with one or two abilities have? That's one of the things we're going to examine here. But first, let's take a closer look at the Silla and see what they have going for them and maybe what's working against them. I'm not going to go through this exhaustively because I did look closely at Silla in the update 1.2.5 video that I did a while ago. I'll leave a link to that down below in the comments or in the description. Now, what Chile gives you in its special ability is +1 culture on resources, which sounds okay. It's pretty decent. It considering they're going to be focusing on resources, that's a lot of culture. But the neat thing is that when you look at all their various civics and their traditions and everything, their resources end up yielding, depending on the conditions, these are situational, they yield culture, as we see here, but also happiness, science, gold, influence, and their trade routes will also yield food and production. They sort of cover everything, or can cover everything if you play them maximally and get every advantage from them. Resources are really the key to everything they do. That's what you can reduce a lot of this down to. And then their special units, they have the mounted archer, they have the merchant that brings in the extra gold. You can establish a permanent trade route that's immune to all sorts of things. You have, well, you have special buildings that can bring in, like I say, additions to your resources, among other things. You have um, a policy slot, an extra policy slot. There are a number of things working for them. And Emil Bell, the newly buffed wonder, they can attain earlier than anybody else, which gives you +2 influence, access to a ginseng agreement diplomatically, and one diplo point. So overall, oh, and let's not forget their +5 land route trading distance, their bonus there. So yes, they have some diplomatic powers, but really their special abilities are mainly in the economic realm, specifically relating to resources. And that's how I think we have to choose leaders in regard to Silla or Shilla. And I think, given everything they can do, really, uh, any leader is going to be like just maybe the frosting on the cake. I think maybe that's the best way of putting it. They only make the Shilla sweeter. So with that in mind, maybe we should take a look at some of the leaders and see which ones are the sweetest of all. First, we have two leaders who also have the diplomatic and economic tags. The first one is Machiavelli. Now, he manages to juggle influence and gold and create, well, his own diplomatic situations, for better or for worse. This is the kind of thing that Machiavelli would be very handy for with Silla. Now, I don't know how much it helps Silla, but it certainly helps Machiavelli to have somebody who can generate gold and influence. So I think that's kind of a one-way street, really. Machiavelli doesn't bring much to the civ itself, but definitely the civ helps him out. With Napoleon Emperor, it's the same kind of situation. Napoleon could use that influence that Silla generates to some extent, anyway, towards sanctions, and then brings in 5 gold and 5 culture per age per active sanction, and then gets +1 combat strength per sanction. So maybe helps round out Silla a little bit in some ways. And I don't know. I'm starting to rethink now. Maybe Napoleon might be a better fit than Machiavelli, even though I still think the other way around probably works better. But it's kind of a toss up between the two of them. And I don't think either of them is the best match for Silla out of the available leaders we have right now. But I'm going to look next, not at the best possible matches, but at the ones that might complement what Silla offers, that might fill in gaps, that might make Silla stronger, and vice versa. Silla might make the leaders stronger. These are what I might call the opposites attract leader civ combos. So, with that, we have somebody like Genghis Khan. Imagine having early cavalry with Shilla's special unit and having that at +3 or +5, depending on the situation. I think Genghis Khan could take big advantage of that. And by extension, Silla could extend its empire and therefore its resources. And well, you know where that leads more gold and victory conditions. So Genghis Khan has other military benefits that, of course, can benefit any civ. But that cavalry synergy is pretty cool. And I didn't even think of him originally, but I read through each of the leaders closely and I thought, oh, yeah, they're considered a ranged cavalry unit, the Warang. I don't know how to pronounce it exactly. So that could work out really well. Now, Augustus is just generally expansionist. And again, more towns, more resource slots. So I think somebody like Augustus, or maybe any expansionist leader, could work well with Silla because, you have more towns or settlements in general, you have more resource slots, you just have more ability to do what Silla does well. So that's why I was thinking of Augustus as well. Lafayette is a very particular thing. He has an endeavor that brings an extra social policy. And what people, I think, are glossing over sometimes is one of Sheila's civics gives them an extra social policy. So that could be mildly interesting to have a leader that brings in an extra social policy and a civ that does so as well. You could double up on those, and that might give you enough of an edge uh, early on, especially, to put you over the top. And so Lafayette could work well with them. Somebody else who sort of could complement Silla is Jose Rizal. After all, he has ways that he can gain influence, gold, culture, happiness. He brings a little bit of everything to the party, if you like, or the celebration, as it turns out. So I don't know. I think that little extra bit of influence combined with Shilla's influence, plus a sprinkling of other things like gold, for instance, yeah, I think they could go very well together. Then you have someone like Harriet Tubman, who could definitely use influence towards her espionage endeavors, if I can call them that. And she also brings +5 war support to the table. I think she gets more of this out of this than they do. But then again, all of that protection and war support, that's not bad. This is a case of a perfect complement, I think, in terms of Civ and leader. They really don't have that much in common, but they do bring stuff for each other. Well, actually, they got a little bit in common, yeah. Then we have Isabella. Now, Isabella is kind of all over the map, a little bit like Jose Rizal. She could bring a number of things to the table, and you don't know what it's going to be from game to game, depending on the wonder she becomes associated with. So there could be any number of bonus resources, culture, science, happiness, whatever, and a good burst of gold as a result of discovering wonders. So that's she could kind of go with anybody really, in terms of getting that first little burst of energy at the beginning of a game, uh, which could be enough to snowball you through the rest of the game. Hard to tell. Then we have Himiko High Shaman, and there's some influence synergy there, but I don't want to make too much of it. I just included her because of that. Her look-alike, Himiko Queen of Wa, well, the influence that the Silla bring can power her Friend of Way endeavor for increased science. And so I think the Silla can definitely help her more than she can help them. But there's nothing wrong with that, obviously. It's just the relationship would be kind of a one-way relationship. Hatshepsut, she has +1 culture per unique resource. Do you see where I'm going with that? Increased culture for Hatshepsut for all the resources, the unique ones that the Silla could be bringing in. Now that's going to vary from game to game, you know, but obviously the Silla are out to get as many different resources as possible. So you're going to have some uniqueness in there in some way. So that can only help a Hatshepsut. And I think they both kind of want navigable rivers. Hatshepsut for the obvious reasons, but navigable rivers do not hurt trade, they only help trade. So I think that could definitely, their interests could coincide there. With Lakshmi Bai, obviously there's some influence synergy again. And an economy that the Shilla could provide that would support Lakshmi Bai's expansionism. Again, expansionist leaders could go really well with a resource based civ like the Shilla. So that could work. But I've really just saved the best for last with the following three leaders. While I think Machiavelli or Napoleon Emperor or any of the others I've talked about could do the trick, I think any one of the next three leaders is a lock. And I'll discuss them in ascending order of lockedness, if that is a word. It isn't, I don't think. I'm not sure. Ibn Battuta is my number three pick here because I think he can adapt to any civ and can make any civ adapt to him. Now, anecdotally, I've had more success with him as an economic leader than any other kind, and I know exactly why that is. It could have something to do with the attribute tree, that he gets more benefits from that tree early on, and he, of course, is, I think, one of the top leaders for any type of victory. But economic, I definitely would put him in the top three. So you might want to consider him. And I would put him a shade over Machiavelli if I were to rank the two of them. The next two, though, it's so hard to pick. Amina gives you an extra city resource slot, uh, and that can only help a civ that gives bonuses of almost every type on resources. And I think that's the key here, is that they would help each other. It's a very symbiotic relationship. And then Amina also gives +1 gold per age for resources assigned to cities. Well, I just want to say mic drop after all that. Definitely strong synergy between Amina and Sheila, and she would be one of my main recommendations for anybody playing Sheila. The next person I consider probably the top economic leader in any case. And I'm focusing on the economic leaders at the end here because, yes, Sheila has some influence based stuff going on, especially with Emil Bell. But ultimately, resources are king for Sheila. And for Xerxes the Achaemenid, resources are not necessarily king, but economics, oh boy. He's got +1 trade route limit with all other leaders, +10 trade range, +50 culture, and 100 gold per age when you create a trade route or road. He has got it going on in so many ways that are perfect for Silla. Ultimately, I think you can't go wrong with either Amina or Xerxes the Achaemenid. I think they both bring very different things to Sheila and vice versa. And I would probably call this a two-way tie, really. If leaders and civs could have soulmates, these are the ones for Sheila. But the whole process is what's interesting to me. I like trying out new combinations and having to alter play styles subtly or ginormously, depending on the matchup. Sheila is an interesting civ, and we'll learn more about what works and what doesn't work with it in the coming months. I think this at least scratches the surface of the possibilities, and I hope that you find it helpful. Otherwise, for now, this is the end of the video. I am Civilized Raccoon. If you liked what you've seen or heard, drop a like or a subscribe, and I'll see you next time.